My name is Clara Whitmore. I'm 27 years old, and 3 hours ago, my father watched federal agents walk through the gold doors of the Plaza Hotel, while 200 guests stared at him like he had just turned into a stranger. He didn't look at the agents first. He looked at me. Because in that moment, he finally understood the truth. The daughter he had spent 10 years calling unstable, dramatic, and too broken to trust had been the one person in the family telling the truth. But before I tell you how my sister's perfect engagement party turned into a federal investigation, I need to take you back to the night my family tried to erase me completely. The night they accused me of ruining the Whitmore name. The night my mother slapped me in front of Manhattan's richest families. And the night I decided that if they wanted a villain, I would give them something far more dangerous. Evidence. It started at 6:40 p.m. on a Friday evening in New York City. The Plaza Hotel glowed like a wedding cake under the evening lights. Black cars lined the curb. Women stepped out in satin gowns and diamonds. Men adjusted their cufflinks and smiled for photographers they pretended not to notice. Inside, the ballroom looked like a magazine spread. White roses hanging from crystal chandeliers. Champagne towers. A string quartet playing near the marble staircase. Gold menus at every place setting. A 12-foot floral arch framing a stage where my sister, Charlotte Whitmore, would soon announce her engagement to Adrian Blackwell, heir to one of the oldest private equity families in America. It was the kind of night my parents lived for. A night designed to prove that the Whitmores were still powerful, still elegant, still untouchable. My father, Harrison Whitmore, stood near the stage in a black tuxedo, smiling like a man who owned every room he entered. My mother, Eleanor, floated beside him in emerald silk, her hand resting lightly on his arm, greeting donors, investors, politicians, and people whose names appeared in magazines more often than in phone contacts. Charlotte stood beneath the chandelier in an ivory dress that looked almost bridal. Perfect posture. Perfect hair. Perfect future. And me? I was standing near the service corridor holding a garment bag because Charlotte had texted me 2 hours earlier. Bring my second dress. Don't be late. And please don't make tonight about you. That was my role in the Whitmore family. Not daughter. Not sister. Useful inconvenience. The one they called when something needed to be picked up, fixed, carried, hidden, explained, or blamed. I should probably explain who we are. Whitmore Biologics is a pharmaceutical research company founded by my grandfather in Boston and expanded by my father into London, New York, and Zurich. Cancer therapies. Rare disease treatments. Clinical trials. Press conferences about hope. Investor calls about numbers. My father loved standing in front of cameras saying things like, "We are in the business of saving lives." People believed him. I used to believe him too. Until I started working in the archives. Not the glamorous part of the company. Not the labs. Not strategy. Not investor relations. The archives. A windowless records department in the basement of the New York office, where old trial documents, patient reports, safety memos, and regulatory submissions went to disappear. My father put me there after what he called my breakdown. I was 17 when it happened. A lab accident at one of our research facilities outside Boston. A young technician named Daniel Reeves died after exposure to a compound that should never have been stored in that room. I saw the internal memo. I saw the warning labels. I saw the missing safety signatures. I told my father something was wrong. He told me I was in shock. I told my mother the company had ignored warnings. She told me grief can distort memory. I told Charlotte. She said, "Clara, not everything is a conspiracy." Within 6 months, the official story was sealed. Human error. Tragic accident. No corporate wrongdoing. And I became the unstable daughter. The dramatic one. The one who couldn't let things go. At family dinners, my father would lower his voice and say, "Clara has always struggled with emotional regulation." My mother would touch my shoulder like I was fragile glass. Charlotte would roll her eyes if I asked too many questions. And the world moved on. Except I didn't. Because Daniel Reeves had been 24 years old. Because his mother sent flowers to the company every year on the anniversary of his death. Because the records didn't match. And because 10 years later, while filing old clinical trial reports in the basement, I found a pattern. Not one mistake. Not one accident. A system. Patient reactions removed from summaries. Adverse events recategorized. Internal warnings marked as non-material. Doctors pressured to revise language. Payments routed through consulting accounts. A drug called Virexa moving toward approval even though the trial data showed severe neurological side effects in a small but terrifying number of patients. Virexa was supposed to be my father's masterpiece. A breakthrough treatment. A billion-dollar launch. The product that would take Whitmore Biologics from respected company to global empire. And buried under 10 years of archived files was proof that people at the top knew the drug was dangerous. I copied nothing at first. I only read. At night. On lunch breaks? After everyone left. I took notes in a cheap black notebook I kept inside the lining of my coat. Dates. Names. Trial numbers. Doctor initials. Document IDs. I learned which file cabinets had been mislabeled. Which reports had been replaced. Which signatures looked real, but weren't. And then I found Daniel Reeves. Not his body. Not his file. The truth. His accident had not been an accident. He had submitted a safety complaint 3 days before he died. The complaint never reached regulators. Someone buried it. Someone senior. Someone with the authority to make records disappear. My father. I sat on the archive floor that night surrounded by boxes, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, and felt something inside me go quiet. Not numb. Not broken. Focused. That is the thing my family never understood about me. They thought my silence meant weakness. It didn't. It meant I was listening. For 18 months, I gathered evidence. I contacted Daniel's mother through an anonymous email. I found 2 former researchers who had signed non-disclosure agreements but were still willing to talk. I sent encrypted files to a federal investigator named Mara Jensen, who worked financial crimes connected to healthcare fraud. I became a confidential source. Not because I wanted revenge. At least, that's what I told myself. I wanted the truth out. I wanted patients protected. I wanted Daniel Reeves to stop being a footnote in my father's empire. But I'd be lying if I said revenge never crossed my mind. Especially on nights like my sister's engagement party. Because that night, my father was not only celebrating Charlotte's engagement, he was announcing the Blackwell merger. Adrian Blackwell's family fund was preparing to invest $900 million into Whitmore Biologics ahead of the Virexa launch. Charlotte would become chief brand officer after the wedding. Adrian would join the board. My father would become untouchable. Unless the evidence became public before the deal closed. That was why Mara Jensen had chosen that night. The federal warrant had been approved that morning. The agents were already in position. All I had to do was keep calm. Get through the party. Wait for the signal. But my family had other plans. I was still near the service corridor when Charlotte swept toward me, her diamond earrings flashing under the lights. You brought the dress? I held up the garment bag. She snatched it without saying thank you. Then her eyes dropped to my outfit. A simple black gown. Nothing designer. Nothing borrowed from my mother's stylist. Just mine. For once, I looked like I belonged in the room. Charlotte's mouth tightened. You're not planning to stay near the front, are you? I almost laughed. It's your engagement party. I thought I was invited. You were invited because Mum insisted it would look strange if you weren't here. There it was. Honesty. Wrapped in perfume. Before I could answer, my mother appeared beside her. Clara, she said softly, which was always more dangerous than when she shouted. Tonight is important. Please don't drink too much. Please don't corner anyone about old company matters. Please don't bring up Daniel Reeves. I looked at her. Daniel had a mother. Her face hardened. And I have a daughter who has spent 10 years trying to destroy this family because she cannot accept that life is unfair. That hurt. It still hurt. Even after everything. Because a part of me was still 17, standing outside a hospital room, waiting for my father to tell the truth. Charlotte leaned closer. If you embarrass us tonight, Clara, I swear to God, what? I asked. You'll stop inviting me to events where I'm treated like staff? Her face flushed. My mother gripped my arm. Hard. Enough. Then the ballroom lights dimmed. A man tapped a microphone. Dinner began. I was placed at table 19, near the kitchen doors. With a retired cousin, 2 junior lawyers, and a woman from my mother's charity board who asked me 3 times what I did for a living and forgot the answer twice. My parents sat at the head table, Charlotte and Adrian beside them, the Blackwells on the other side. Senators, investors, magazine editors, hospital donors, and board members filled the front of the room. I watched my father move from table to table, charming everyone. He was good at it. That was the worst part. Monsters in real life rarely look like monsters. Sometimes they kiss their wives on the cheek. Sometimes they fund children's hospitals. Sometimes they speak gently to waiters. Sometimes they build companies that say they save lives. At 9:15 p.m., my phone vibrated under the table. One message. Mara. 10 minutes. My pulse slowed. Not quickened. Slowed. Like my body understood something my mind hadn't caught up to yet. It was happening. Then my father walked onto the stage. The room erupted in applause before he even spoke. He raised both hands in false humility. Tonight, he said, is about love, family, and legacy. Of course it was. He spoke about Charlotte as if she had been born holding a business plan. He praised Adrian. He praised the Blackwell family. He called the merger a union of vision and trust. Then he looked toward my table and smiled. A cold, deliberate smile. I also want to speak briefly about loyalty, he said. The room quieted. My stomach tightened. Every family has its challenges. Every business has people who do not understand the weight of what is being built. Sometimes those people are inside your own home. My mother turned her head away. Charlotte looked down at her plate. Adrian watched me with an expression I couldn't read. My father continued. For years, my daughter Clara has struggled. We have protected her privacy. We have supported her. We have forgiven more than most families would. Whispers moved across the ballroom. I stood slowly. My chair scraped the floor. Dad's smile sharpened. Tonight, we discovered that confidential company documents were removed from Whitmore Biologics archives. A lie. Not entirely, but enough. And we have reason to believe Clara was involved. The room turned toward me. 200 faces. Some shocked. Some fascinated. Some delighted in the quiet way rich people enjoy scandal as long as it does not touch them. My mother stood, tears already shining. Clara, how could you? That was when I realized. They knew. Not everything, but enough. Someone had discovered the missing archive access logs. Someone had warned my father. And now he was trying to destroy my credibility before the agents arrived. Classic Harrison Whitmore. If the truth is coming, poison the witness first. Security appeared near my table. Charlotte stood too. Her voice shook with perfect heartbreak. You promised you wouldn't ruin tonight. I looked at her. Did you know? She looked away. That was my answer. My father spoke into the microphone. Clara, for your own sake, leave quietly. I could have done it. I could have waited outside. I could have let the agents handle everything. But something in me, something 10 years old and buried under every insult, every diagnosis used as a weapon, every dinner where they discussed me like a family liability, finally stood up. I walked toward the stage. Security moved to block me. I looked at my father. You want to talk about confidential documents? His eyes flickered. Clara, he said quietly, away from the microphone now. Do not do this. That was the first honest thing he had said all night. Not you're lying, not you're confused. Do not do this. Because he knew I could. I took the second microphone from its stand. My hand was steady. For 10 years, I said. My family told people I was unstable because I wouldn't stop asking questions about Daniel Reeves. The room went silent. My father's face went flat. Daniel was a technician at Whitmore Biologics. He died in a lab accident when I was 17. The company said it was human error. I turned toward the crowd. It wasn't, my mother whispered. Stop. I didn't. Daniel filed a safety complaint 3 days before he died. That complaint was suppressed. His death was used as a warning to other employees. And the same safety culture that killed him is now being used to rush Virexa toward approval. A man near the front stood. One of the company lawyers. Miss Whitmore, I strongly advise. The ballroom doors opened. Not dramatically. Not with a crash. Just a clean, official movement. 6 federal agents entered. Behind them came Mara Jensen in a navy suit, badge clipped at her waist. The room inhaled all at once. My father looked at the doors, then at me. And for the first time in my life, I saw fear enter his face and find a home there. Mara walked to the stage. Harrison Whitmore? My father did not answer. She held up a document. We have a federal warrant to search the premises, seize relevant electronic devices, and question individuals connected to the falsification of clinical trial data, obstruction of regulatory review, securities fraud, and conspiracy. Charlotte made a sound behind me. Adrian stepped back from her. The Blackwells looked like someone had dropped blood into their champagne. Cameras were already out. Phones raised. The perfect engagement party became evidence in real time. My mother grabbed my arm. Her nails cut into my skin. "What have you done?" I looked at her hand. Then at her face. "What you should have done 10 years ago." She slapped me. Hard. The sound cracked through the microphone. The whole room heard it. For 1 second, nobody moved. Then Mara stepped between us. "Mrs. Whitmore, step back." My mother stared at me like I was the stranger. But I wasn't. I was the daughter she had trained herself not to see. Agents moved through the ballroom. Company lawyers whispered frantically. Investors fled toward corners to make calls. Adrian's father demanded to speak to counsel. Charlotte stood beneath the white roses, engagement ring glittering on her finger, while the future she had been promised collapsed around her. And my father? He looked old. Not weak. Not sorry. Old. As if every lie had been holding his face up, and now the structure had failed. Mara asked him again. "Harrison Whitmore, will you come with us voluntarily?" He looked at me. "You have no idea what you've destroyed." I stepped closer. "No, Dad. I know exactly what I've stopped." He was not arrested that night. Not officially. Not in handcuffs. That came later. But the damage was immediate. By midnight, the engagement was over. By morning, the merger was suspended. By Monday, Whitmore Biologics stock had dropped 38%. By Wednesday, 3 former researchers came forward publicly. By Friday, Daniel Reeves's mother gave an interview holding the last photo of her son. And by the following month, my father resigned as CEO pending criminal investigation. People asked if I felt victorious. I didn't. I felt exhausted. Victory is a strange word when the people losing are still your family. Charlotte didn't speak to me for 6 weeks. Then, one night, she came to my apartment in Brooklyn. No makeup. Hair tied back. No driver waiting downstairs. Just my sister, standing in the rain with mascara under her eyes. "I didn't know about the trial data," she said. I let her in. She stood in my kitchen, looking smaller than I had ever seen her. "But I knew they were going to blame you tonight," she whispered. "Dad said if we controlled the story first, no one would believe you." That hurt more than I expected. "You let him do it," she nodded. "I did. Why? Because I was scared if I defended you, they'd turn on me too." There it was. The truth. Ugly. Human. Not enough to heal anything, but enough to begin. I poured tea because I didn't know what else to do with my hands. Charlotte looked around my tiny apartment. The files on my table. The notes on my wall. The picture of Daniel Reeves I kept near my desk. "You were never crazy," she said. "No. You were alone." I looked at her. "Yes," she cried then. Not beautifully. Not like at parties. Really cried. I did not comfort her right away. Some apologies need to sit in the room before they are allowed to be touched. Eventually I said, "If you want forgiveness, I can't give you the kind that makes you feel clean by morning. I know. If you want a relationship, it starts with the truth." She nodded. So I told her everything. Not the evidence. She had seen enough of that on the news. I told her about being 17 and hearing Daniel's mother scream in the hospital corridor. I told her about the basement archives. I told her about the panic attacks I hid because our family used weakness as currency. I told her about every time Dad called me unstable in front of people who later treated me like a loaded gun. And for once, Charlotte listened. Not corrected. Not defended. Listened. My father was indicted 8 months later. Securities fraud. Obstruction. Falsification of trial data. Conspiracy. The company survived, but not unchanged. A court-appointed oversight board took control during the investigation. Virexa was pulled from review. Patients in the trial were contacted. Some sued. Some cried. Some simply asked why nobody told them sooner. That question will haunt me forever. Why nobody told them sooner? Because I tried. Because I was not believed. Because powerful families are very good at turning truth into illness when it comes from the wrong daughter. My mother sold the house in Greenwich and moved to London. She sent one email. No apology. Just one line. "I hope one day you understand what this has cost us." I replied with one line too. "I understand exactly what silence costs." She did not write back. As for me, I didn't inherit the company. I didn't become CEO. This isn't that kind of story. I became director of patient advocacy for a non-profit founded in Daniel Reeves's name. His mother asked me to help build it. At first, I said no. I told her I didn't deserve to stand beside Daniel's name. She took my hands and said, "You were the only one in that family who remembered he had one." So I said yes. We help whistleblowers now. Lab technicians, trial nurses, data clerks, people in basements, people with access badges and shaking hands, people who know something is wrong but have been told they are too small to say it. I know that feeling. I know the sound of being dismissed. It sounds like concern. It sounds like you're too emotional. It sounds like you misunderstood. It sounds like, don't make this about you. It sounds like your mother crying before you have even spoken, so everyone assumes you must have done something cruel. It sounds like your father calling you unstable because unstable daughters are easier to ignore than guilty men. A year after the engagement party, I visited Daniel's grave. His mother came with me. We stood there in the wind with white flowers between us. She told me Daniel used to play guitar badly and make excellent pancakes. She told me he wanted to buy a cabin in Vermont. She told me he had been saving for an engagement ring. All the things no company report ever mentioned. On the drive home, I thought about my father standing on that stage, talking about legacy. Legacy. People use that word when they want the future to sound clean. But legacy is not what you announce under chandeliers. It is what remains after the lights come on. My father's legacy will be court filings, ruined families, and a drug that never should have reached patients. Daniel's legacy will be every person who comes forward because his story taught them that the truth can survive longer than a cover-up. And mine? I don't know yet. Maybe my legacy is that I stopped begging the wrong people to believe me. Maybe it is that I learned the difference between being dramatic and being brave. Maybe it is that when my family put a microphone in my hand expecting me to apologize, I told the truth instead. Charlotte and I speak now. Carefully. Honestly. She broke off the engagement with Adrian after discovering his family knew more about the Virexa concerns than they admitted. She works at a small clinic foundation in Queens. No cameras. No designer office. No title handed to her by our father. She says she is learning how to be useful without being admired. I told her that is a good start. Sometimes she asks me if I hate her. I tell her the truth. Some days, she accepts that. That is also a start. My father's trial begins in October. I will testify. He will sit across the courtroom in a dark suit, looking calm for the cameras. His lawyers will suggest I am resentful. They will mention therapy. They will mention my anxiety. They will mention the family's concerns about my emotional stability. They will try to put the unstable daughter on trial because they cannot erase the documents. That used to scare me. It doesn't anymore. Because now I know something I wish I had known at 17. Being called unstable by people who profit from your silence does not make you unstable. Sometimes it means you are standing on ground they know is about to shake. So if you are listening to this from the back row of your own life, wondering if you are crazy because everyone around you keeps denying what you can clearly see, listen to me. Document everything. Trust patterns. Protect yourself. Find one person outside the system who has no reason to lie for them. And never confuse being outnumbered with being wrong. My name is Clara Whitmore. My family called me unstable. They said I was broken, obsessive, dramatic, dangerous. Maybe I was dangerous. Not because I lied. Because I remembered. Because I listened. Because I kept the files. Because when the ballroom doors opened and the truth walked in wearing a federal badge, I did not look away. I used to think my family destroyed me by not believing me. Now I understand. They trained me. Every insult taught me patience. Every dismissal taught me precision. Every lonely night in that archive taught me how to build a case strong enough to survive people who wanted me silent. My father built an empire on buried reports. My mother protected the lie because comfort mattered more to her than conscience. My sister chose the golden life until the gold started burning her hands. And me? I was the unstable daughter. The one near the service corridor. The one they thought no one would believe. But the truth does not need to be popular. It only needs to be kept alive long enough. And I kept it alive. That is my story. Not a story about revenge. Not really. It is a story about what happens when the person everyone dismisses becomes the only witness they should have feared. Because I did not come to that engagement party to destroy my family. I came to tell the truth. They just happened to be standing in the blast radius.